Episode 5 opens with a young girl singing a gentle, nostalgic song about family, home, and parents. As the song progresses, its tone gradually shifts, becoming more unsettling and about the underworld. The scene ends with the girl not finishing the song and breaking the fourth wall, addressing the audience directly, saying that was where the song ended. After the eerie prologue, the episode transitions to Natsu stepping out of Ofu's soba restaurant. As she exits, she accidentally bumps into a samurai. Aware of how quick-tempered and proud samurais can be, Natsu immediately becomes flustered and begins apologizing. Ofu's father quickly steps in, easing the tension as he introduces the samurai as Naotsugu Miura. Contrary to Natsu's fears, Naotsugu turned out to be a kind-hearted samurai and was known for his heart of gold. The next morning, Naotsugu is back at the soba shop. Seeing he was troubled, Ofu's dad asked him what the problem was, and Naotsugu shares a troubling thought. Claiming he once had an older brother named Satanaga Miura, Ofu's father, clearly puzzled, points out that everyone knows Naotsugu is the only heir of the Miura family, and as far as anyone's heard, he's never had an older brother. Confused, Naotsugu quietly adds that no one seems to remember his brother, not even their parents. And he feels he was losing his mind, seeing his predicament. Ofu recommended Jinya for the job, mentioning that he might be able to help. Her father chimed in, saying Jinya was one of their regulars and had a knack for sticking his nose into all kinds of strange matters. Curious, Naotsugu asked if Jinya was some kind of shaman or diviner. Ofu and her father burst into laughter at Naotsugu's question. Her father, still chuckling, explained that Jinya was just a ronin, but he usually goes around solving strange incidents and mysteries but for a price. Soon enough Jinya enters the shop, placing his usual order of soba. As he ate, he and Ofu began chatting about flowers, and Naotsugu approached him and introduced himself politely. He explained that he'd heard Jinya was known for looking into rumors about demons and strange phenomenon. Hoping for assistance, he asked if Jinya could help him solve a personal mystery. Jinya expresses how he is only good at exterminating demons and cannot really help with supernatural investigations. Frustrated, Naotsugu quietly paid for his soba and left the restaurant without another word. As soon as he left, Ofu's father turned to Jinya and pleaded with him to reconsider. He explained that Naotsugu had been deeply affected by the disappearance of his brother, and the weight of it had taken a toll on him. Ofu added that losing someone so important had made him emotionally unstable. With both of them earnestly urging him, Jinya finally agreed to look into the case since they seemed rather obsessed with the guy, but Ofu's dad said it was only because Naotsugu was one of their few regulars. Later on, Natsu spots Jinya at a tea shop, quietly enjoying some tea in a soba matcha. She places her order and casually joins him. After a bit of small talk, Jinya finishes up, pays his bill, and stands to leave. When he mentions he's off to work, Natsu, curious, asks why he hunts demons. Jinya pauses, then admits he doesn't really know. But if he had to give a reason, it would be that it's simply the only path left for him. She smiles and tells him to just call her Natsu, saying they've known each other long enough for the formalities to feel awkward. With that, she bids him farewell. Later that evening, Naotsugu is seen preparing to head out when his mother calls after him, addressing him as Aramori. She asks if he's going out searching again and, clearly upset, reminds him that he is the only heir of the Miura family, insisting he has no older brother. But Naotsugu firmly replies that he remembers his brother clearly, and that he can't move on until he finds him. He promises to focus on his duties once he finds his brother, and with that, he excuses himself. Not long after, Jinya approaches Naotsugu and introduces himself, saying he had decided to look into his case, although he can't promise any answers. Naotsugu, clearly relieved, thanks him and says that just having someone believe him is enough to bring him some peace of mind. Wasting no time, Jinya gets straight to the point and asks Naotsugu to tell him everything about how things were before his brother disappeared. They decided to head to the soba shop to talk more privately. As they settle in, Naotsugu can't help but point out the katana Jinya carries. Jinya replies calmly, saying he once lived in a village of blacksmiths, known for crafting swords, and he served in a role that demanded him to wield one. Naotsugu admits he's kind of a sword connoisseur, and learning about different blades is a bit of a hobby for him. Jinya tells him that they really should get started. With that, Naotsugu gets serious and begins explaining how his brother, Satanaga, went missing, and no matter how much he's searched, he hasn't been able to find him. What's worse is that nobody else seems to remember him at all. And his parents claim they have never heard of this Satanaga person, and he was the only heir of their family. Now he is forced to conclude nobody remembers his brother apart from him. Shortly after, the soba shop owner chimed in, saying if they wanted to have a serious conversation, they should take it somewhere more private. Jinya shrugged and said it was fine, since no one really came to the shop anyway. Besides, he brought Naotsugu there because they seemed concerned about him. Jinya asked Naotsugu when exactly his brother went missing, and he replied that it was just before spring at the end of January. He recalled that the last thing his brother said was that he was going to meet a girl. Later, while looking through his brother's room, Naotsugu found some flowers. He didn't know much about plants, but he remembered they had a strong fragrance. He added that the flowers were small, with white petals and a yellow center. It struck him as odd because his brother was never the type to care about flowers. And the timing was even stranger. He found them right after his brother vanished. Naotsugu added that no one else had entered the room except him, so he assumed the flowers were left there by his brother. Jinya then asked if he still had them, and Naotsugu said yes, because he figured they might be important, so he preserved them carefully before they wilted. Hearing that, Jinya told him he'd like to visit his house the next day to take a look for himself. In the morning, Jinya stops by the soba shop, and happens to run into Natsu again. He greets her and places his usual order. While waiting, he casually asks Ofu how close she was to Naotsugu. Ofu replies that they're not particularly close, but they talk now and then when he visits the shop. She also finds him to be kind and earnest. Natsu chimes in, saying he struck her as a humble guy. Ofu's father agrees, but adds that Naotsugu can get a little too excited whenever the subject of swords comes up. As if to prove his point, he pulls out a Kagai hairpin, saying it belonged to Naotsugu. He chuckles, recalling how obsessed Naotsugu is with swords, so much so that he once overheard Naotsugu's mother scolding him, saying, "Enough is enough," or "Imori." Confused, Jinya asks Ofu's dad if he's had dealings with Naotsugu's mother before. Looking a bit nervous, the old man admits he has just enough to catch a quick glimpse and describes her as a real terror. Then, trying to change the subject, he pushes the Kagai onto Jinya, insisting he take it. Jinya refuses at first, saying Naotsugu gave it to him as a gift, but Ofu's dad waves him off, saying there's no reason a soba shop owner should be holding onto samurai gear, and he didn't need it anymore. Reluctantly, Jinya accepts, saying he'll hold onto it for him. Ofu's dad thanks him. Jinya then turns to Ofu and asks if the flowers Naotsugu mentioned were daffodils. She nods, confirming they were, even though he said they were small. Jinya goes quiet, as he thinks to himself, hoping they weren't daffodils after all. The episode closes on an eerie note, returning to the mysterious young girl from the beginning. She stands alone in a garden she calls the Garden of Happiness, a place where she once spent time with her family. As she looks around, she realizes the path that once led her home no longer existed, and it was long gone. Please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.